The malignant corruption of childhood innocence. A stern woman in a purple dress stands sentinel beside a neatly made bed, her rigid presence contrasting sharply with the vulnerable figures beside her. Central to the scene is a doll in a pink dress, perched on the bed's edge, its delicate form serving as a fragile emblem of childhood innocence. Yet this innocence is not unchallenged. A monstrous shadow, its form amorphous but distinctly menacing with glowing red eyes and a jagged mouth, looms directly behind the doll. The shadow's threatening posture and ambiguous boundaries conjure a sense of approaching danger. Paula Rego's composition vividly encapsulates the malignant corruption of childhood innocence, a recurring motif in her narrative paintings. The interplay between the stern authority figure, the vulnerable doll, and the encroaching shadow establishes a tense psychological drama. Through this confrontation, Rego explores how innocence is not merely lost, but actively endangered by both external and internal forces, setting the stage for a deeper investigation into the unsettling dynamics at work. The stern woman's expression and attire. Examining the woman in the purple dress reveals a fascinating duality. Her tightly pursed lips, arched brows, and unwavering gaze radiate discipline and an unyielding sense of vigilance. The dress she wears is buttoned up with precision, its deep purple hue traditionally associated with power and mourning. Purple's dual symbolism here suggests both her authoritative role and a suppressed grief or loss. Her posture, upright and motionless, with one hand clenched at her side, enhances the impression of controlled tension. This figure may stand for the societal or familial structures that enforce order, but also contribute to the stifling or distortion of innocence. There is both protectiveness and oppression in her bearing, reflecting Rego's nuanced depiction of authority figures. They are at once guardians and potential sources of harm. The care with which Rego renders her facial features, sharp cheekbones, pinched mouth, furrowed brow, conveys an emotional complexity that elevates her beyond a mere villain or protector, but rather as an embodiment of the ambiguous forces that shape childhood. The porcelain doll in pink. At the painting's center, the porcelain doll in a soft pink dress becomes the focal point of vulnerability. Pink, a color culturally laden with connotations of innocence, femininity, and childhood, envelops the doll, amplifying its delicate aura. With golden curls, glazed skin, and glassy eyes, the doll's lifelike features intensify the sense of fragility and passivity. Its seated position, legs dangling over the bed, suggests both a child's passivity and a kind of staged helplessness, a readiness to be acted upon. This choice turns the doll into a potent metaphor. It is an object of display, expected to remain beautiful and compliant, while completely exposed to harm. Here, Rego underscores the societal expectations placed on children, especially girls, to embody innocence while rendering them defenseless. By giving the doll such vivid, almost human characteristics, she invites viewers to see not just a toy, but the emotional and psychological reality of children subjected to the whims of more powerful figures and corrupting influences. The menacing shadow figure. Behind the fragile doll, the shadow figure emerges as the embodiment of threat. Its form is intentionally vague, more suggestion than substance. Yet its red eyes and jagged teeth provide unmistakable menace. The shadow's amorphous body spills over the bed, encroaching upon the space reserved for innocence. The ambiguity of its contours allows it to stand for many forms of corruption, abuse, fear, trauma, or societal evils that are rarely named but always felt. By keeping the shadow undefined, Rego magnifies its universality and psychological resonance. It is not just one monster, but the specter of harm present in countless childhoods. The contrast between the shadow's inky blackness and the doll's pastel luminosity heightens the sense of impending doom. The shadow's placement, looming but never quite materializing, speaks to the insidious nature of trauma. It is ever present, often invisible, and always threatening to engulf innocence. The stark contrast of colors. Color orchestrates the emotional intensity of this work. Warm oranges dominate the vertical stripes of the wallpaper, suggesting both domestic familiarity and a suffocating heat. These oranges are not comforting, but claustrophobic, pressing in from the margins and heightening the sense of confinement. Against this, the blue bedspread introduces a chill, a stark, almost clinical coldness that underscores themes of isolation and emotional distance. The woman's purple dress acts as a visual anchor, asserting dominance and control within the color hierarchy. Most striking, however, is the deep black of the shadow figure, which slices through the composition with a violence that disrupts the warmth and coolness alike. Rego's deliberate opposition of colors mirrors the psychological battleground within the scene, the warmth of presumed safety versus the cold of isolation, the vivacity of innocence against the darkness of corruption. This chromatic tension deepens the painting's emotional resonance, making the viewer feel the discomfort and unease that pervades the domestic environment. The bedroom as a site of conflict. The entire narrative unfolds within the intimate confines of a bedroom, a space conventionally linked with safety, rest, and the nurturing of childhood. Yet, Rego subverts this expectation by transforming the room into an arena of conflict. The bed, typically a symbol of comfort, becomes a stage for a confrontation between innocence and evil. The wallpaper's rigid vertical stripes reinforce a sense of enclosure, as if the room itself is closing in upon its inhabitants. Corners recede into shadow, hinting at threats lurking just beyond the visible. The domestic setting amplifies the painting's psychological horror. Trauma and corruption often arise not from the outside world, but from within the most protected environments. Rego's manipulation of space and architecture intensifies the sense of entrapment, underscoring the idea that the loss of innocence is not a distant or abstract threat, but an immediate and intimate danger. Symbolism of the doll's position and gesture. A closer look at the doll's body language reveals subtleties that enrich the narrative. Her arms, gently outstretched, evoke a gesture of yearning or a silent plea for comfort, perhaps directed toward the stern woman, perhaps to an absent protector. The slightly parted lips, frozen in porcelain, suggest a moment of surprise, distress, or an unvoiced cry. These small articulations humanize the doll, transforming it from an object into a symbol of a child's emotional reality. The gesture encapsulates a silent suffering, a plea that goes unheard or unacknowledged by the adult figure beside her. Through these details, Rego compels the viewer to consider the plight of children rendered voiceless by the very forces meant to shield them. This silent, expressive gesture stands as a testament to the resilience and vulnerability of innocence in the face of malignancy. The painting's psychological impact. The composition as a whole weaves an intricate visual narrative of innocence imperiled by unseen and unnamed evils. The stern authority, the fragile child figure, and the shapeless threat are locked in a tableau where emotional currents of fear, control, and helplessness swirl beneath the surface. The confined bedroom, the oppressive color scheme, and the symbolic gestures converge to create a painting that is both haunting and deeply evocative. Paula Rego's cruel narratives do not shy away from the darkness that shadows childhood. Instead, they illuminate the psychological realities that often remain unspoken. This work invites reflection on the persistence of trauma, the ambiguities of authority, and the silent battles waged within the most intimate spaces. In exploring these themes, Rego's painting stands as a powerful statement on the enduring vulnerability of childhood and the need for empathy and vigilance in the face of the many forces that threaten innocence.